be showing you guys 5 different tips on how you can become a pretty insane controller player. As always, drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, and if you want to see more, then go ahead and click that subscribe button. But let's waste no time and get right into the first tip for becoming an insane controller player, and that's gonna be a pretty simple tip. It's just to have good controller settings. When you have some settings that are way too fast and others that are way too slow, the toll that it takes on your overall skill is actually pretty crazy. This is why I've said before, and I'll say it again, I truly think that the easiest way to get good settings is just to copy a pro player's. Because what I found a lot of players do is they'll go in and they'll try to set their own best settings. A lot of times they don't even know what half the settings do, they just set it to wherever feels comfortable. And while it's important to have comfortable settings, some settings definitely put you at a disadvantage. I mean, the arguably best 5 controller players right now use almost identical settings, like I showed off in that secret controller settings video, so they obviously work really well. And I personally think it's a lot better to try to get used to settings that are already proven, because then at least you know it's possible to reach that sort of skill level just through practice. You know that your settings aren't holding you back whatsoever. You may think that you found like a secret hack or some of the controller settings, but these top controller players have a combined earnings of millions of dollars in Fortnite. Most of them play this game 6+ hours every single day, so I really would trust those settings more than anyone else's. Because even if you do set like your ADS boost to 65% because you think it's really good, having this setting at this rate might actually put you at a disadvantage that you don't even know of yet. So for the first tip, make sure you have good controller settings, and the easiest way to do that is just to copy pro players. Now the second way to become an insane controller player is kind of similar to the first point, but it's also a completely separate thing, and that's to have optimized controller binds. And that is going to begin with the type of controller grip you use. I would say probably somewhere around 90% of pro controller players use claw, and that's split between players that just use left hand claw, just use right hand claw, and some players play double claw. But I would say 90% or maybe even more of pro controller players use some sort of claw grip. And I would probably say like 8% use paddles and probably 2% don't use either, and they just play on standard grip. So if you want to become a really insane controller player, it seems like the most common thing is to play claw. However, if you've never played claw, then that can be a really difficult transition. So there are players like Colazo and Scoped who show it's possible to play at a high level just by using paddles. And paddles are actually what I use. I have the Strike Pack Eliminator, so it just adds 4 extra buttons to the back of my controller. I would say the only downside to paddles is really the cost of them. There are really cheap like $20 options like the DualShock 4 backbone attachment. However, I have tried that, and if you're wanting to play at a high level, that's probably not gonna cut it. My favorite paddle option is still the Strike Packs. So I have my 4-button Eliminator that I just showed you, and this is the 2-paddle Dominator. I think they range from like $35 to $50 depending on which model you get, but these ones have a downside on PC because they can be pretty difficult to set up. And then really your next best option is gonna be like a scuff controller that's gonna run you hundreds of dollars. So I guess overall I would say if you're playing on a standard controller, standard grip, I would suggest making the commitment of learning claw. It'll definitely be a process and take a while, but I think the payoff and the amount of skill you can gain by playing claw is pretty crazy. Otherwise, if you're willing to spend some money, paddles are a nice alternative, but at this point 4 years into the game, I don't think anyone should be playing on standard controller anymore if you're trying to be a good player. So that's just for your controller and controller grip. Now let's talk about actual binds. I think having optimal binds is the second most important thing next to having optimal settings, because similar to the settings, if you have poor binds, that's gonna limit your skill a lot. And again, similarly to settings, I think that the best possible way to find optimal binds is to just use pro players and copy a player that uses the same setup as you. So for example, if you play right hand claw, copy Dave's bind. If you play double claw, copy Miro's binds. If you play 2 paddles, copy Colazo or Scope's binds. And if you play standard grip with no claw or paddles, then copy Furious's setting. Just like with settings, even if you find them uncomfortable at first, I think it's really beneficial to stick with them and get used to them. Because again, if pro players that have won combined millions of dollars on this video game play this game at least 6 hours every single day and have been playing this game 6+ hours for every day for the past like 3 to 4 years, they are obviously going to have the best binds. So at least by copying their binds, you know that you won't set any bad unoptimal binds and waste your time. Now for the third tip, we're gonna stray away from like the settings and binds you should be using and move to the focus of what you should be doing when you get in game. So the third tip is to have quality practice and use your time wisely. Most of us don't get to sit in our rooms all day and play Fortnite. We all have other commitments like sports, family events, school, and whatever else. This means that we all have a limited amount of time to play the game. Because of our limited time, we need to make sure that when we do play the game, it's quality time. A lot of times, most of us will hop on the game, go into creative and free build to warm up for a little bit. It might happen to like an arena game or two, but then we get sidetracked. We'll go watch YouTube or Twitch or do literally anything except for actually play the game. If you want to get insane at controller, but you're on limited time, you need to make sure you're getting quality games in. That can be done in creative and 1v1s or zone wars against really good players, or that can be done by actually playing like arena or tournaments. Obviously, the point of Fortnite and the point of gaming in general is to have fun, so don't force yourself to play it and make yourself hate the game. But if you want to get really good on controller and you have a limited amount of time to play, you might have to cut back on time spent like playing pubs with friends or playing death runs or 1v1ing little Timmies that don't even know how to build, because none of that is actually helping you get better. The fourth way to become an insane controller player is to watch other insane controller players. This sort of ties into using your time wisely, because when you're not actually playing the game, you can be watching someone better than you play the game and learn a ton. I think that watching other pro players play is one of the most underrated ways to get better and learn the game. The amount of things that you can learn just by watching a pro player play is actually pretty crazy. When you watch though, try to actually pay attention to the technical side of what they're doing and not just consume it solely as entertainment. Watch for the piece control, the rotations, the comms. Start to study literally everything that they're doing. It is actually such a great way to learn the game more and improve. And the last tip I have for becoming an insane controller player is kinda cheesy, kinda corny, but that's to stay motivated or be disciplined. This means that you don't like practice for a few days, then stop for a week, then come back and start practicing again. You need to be consistently working towards getting better. I say either motivated or disciplined, because if you're motivated to achieve something, you'll want to grind really hard to get there. Most people are motivated by goals they set, so like some examples of motivational goals within Fortnite could be like to get earnings, to get better clips for your montage, or become a T1 pro. And those are just some examples, obviously there's lots more. However, if you're not motivated and you're to the point where you're kind of lazy and you don't really want to play, but you still have goals you want to achieve, then you need to be disciplined. So that means even when you don't really want to play, you don't really want to practice, you still do anyway, because it's the only way to achieve those goals. And I know this is kind of like a cheesy sort of comparison, but I mean the same thing applies to literally everything in your life. If you're playing a sport and you have like weightlifting at 5 a.m., there are very few people that are actually motivated and wanting to wake up at 5 a.m. to go lift weights. So instead of being motivated, they're disciplined enough to still wake up and still go, because they know that's the only way for them to become bigger, stronger, a better player. And you can apply that same sort of concept to Fortnite. So those are my 5 tips to you on how to become an insane controller player. I hope these help, and I hope to see you in a future video.